Hello, welcome back to the Straight Line Path podcast. My name is Aaron and I'm joined with my co-host Peter. In this episode, we talked to Michael Kearney, who has been involved in numerous franchises over the last 4 decades. He has also been involved in the Irish Rugby Team as team manager for 5 years. He is EY Entrepreneur finalist, and on top of that, he mentors athletes and business leaders alike.
Yeah, today was a jam-packed episode. Talked about Michael's story, becoming a franchisee, the highs and lows of sport, as well as work-life balance, and so much more. So we really hope you enjoy.
Michael, thanks for coming on. What are the benefits of becoming a franchisee as opposed to starting out on your own as a new entrepreneur?
That's straight into it. Obviously, I've been involved in franchising for many, many years. And I always preached the benefits of franchising to whoever came looking for advice to me. I think the advantages are that you immediately have a very good support structure behind you, and you should have. There might be some franchises out there that may not, I suppose, give the support that they should be giving from a franchise point of view, but it's an area that I would have always been very focused on, whether it be in snap printing way back in the 80s and 90s, or whether more latterly in home instead senior care. So that's one major benefit of franchising that you don't have as an individual business person. So if you set up a business on your own, it can tend to be very lonely existence. So if you're in a franchise, you not only have the support of the head office, but you also have the support of your fellow franchise owners. So that's huge. I think the other probably main advantage would be the marketing and the access to a good marketing team and a good marketing fund as well. So if, for instance, you're involved in say a snap printing where at its peak had about 25 outlets and all contributing 2% of their revenue into a fund, well, each franchisee effectively gets the benefit of that 2%. So it's a massively beneficial part of franchising as well. And then there's just the brand, obviously, is the obvious one as well. You get a recognizable brand straight away.
Yeah, there seems to be, lots of supports there. And for those of you who don't know you and they don't know your story, could you give us a little bit of background and how you got into franchising and Snap?
Yeah, so I came from a farming and cattle dealing background, and I worked with my dad for a few years after leaving Castleknock College. We actually emigrated to Australia then back in 1982, and I got involved in coaching down in a rugby club called Cottesloe in Perth in Western Australia. And I happened to be coaching the son of the CEO of Snap, a guy called Paddy Thompson, who was originally from Mountmellick in County Laois. So Paddy offered me a job in Snap at the lowest rung of the ladder, which was a trainee printer. I was 25 years of age at the time, and 2 years later I came home with a master franchise for Snap. So it was a pretty rapid elevation, you might call it, from trainee printer to master franchise holder for Ireland. So that's how it came about. I mean, it's funny. I'm a great believer in luck and serendipity. And if I hadn't joined that particular rugby club, I probably wouldn't have met Paddy Thompson, and I wouldn't have got into Snap, and who knows what might have happened. So got into Snap, worked with them for 2 years, worked my way up to centre manager level, and then set up the first Snap in Andrew Street in Dublin 2 on the 1st of July 1984. So we celebrated, I think, 40 years last July.
Congratulations. And that's a great story about networking and getting those connections and obviously getting lucky at the right time. And I heard you talking in a previous podcast before, and you'd mentioned about how you'd almost rank that above sales and people you can network. Could you maybe feed into that a little bit?
Just in terms of networking and sales, yeah, I mean, sales is a kind of an interesting a question about sales is always, I think, interesting in that I think it's a very underrated career, number one. I think that salespeople are good salespeople are very difficult to find, difficult to hold on to. But if you find good ones, it can obviously make a business. I mean, business effectively is ultimately all about selling and all about sales. I think the way people maybe sold back in the 80s and the way they sell now is probably completely different. It's very much relationship focused now. And I'd always say to people that I mentor, I'd say if you're a nice person, you can sell. That's the bottom line. If you're good at building relationships and you're a nice person, you can pretty well sell anything. I don't think you need to be this kind of smart, well-groomed, big talker to be a good salesperson. I think it's very much about being humble, being low key, but just being a very nice person. And people want to buy off nice people, and I have found that over the years. And I think it's a good lesson, I think, for people who want to get into sales. Just be a nice person, build relationships, and you get on well.
Absolutely. Because I do think that there is a huge element of trust when it comes to selling, and building that trust is super essential. I noticed that you've won Franchise of the Year 5 years, right? 5 times?
Yeah, with Snap, and we probably won it maybe 3 or 4 times with Home Instead Senior Care as well, I would have thought.
Yeah. And is there a consistent thread when it comes to that kind of performance?
I think you need both sides, obviously, of the franchising agreement. So the franchisor has to do its job properly. That's key, and that means taking a genuine interest in the franchisee, making sure that the franchisee is profitable as well as the franchisor. I think part of that comes down to having the right franchise. Snap was a very good franchise because the average sales in each of the centres was probably approaching maybe 1 million and in excess of 1 million on an annual basis. So that gave grounds for very good, profitable centres, but it also gave very good grounds for a profitable franchisor, which in turn enabled the franchisor to lend even more support to the franchisees. In the Home Instead model, we grew that from kind of zero revenue to 80 million revenue in the space of about maybe 12 years, 12, 13 years. And that was obviously a very high grossing franchise, which again meant that you had very profitable franchisees and you had a very profitable franchisor. In some franchises, I think if you've got certainly a low grossing franchise, and we had some experience of that in a fitness franchise that we had called Contours Express, where the maximum a franchise would probably turn over was in the region of about 150,000. And trying to support a franchise at that level was very difficult, and trying to run a profitable franchise from the franchisee point of view was also very difficult. So one of the key metrics I always look at is how high can you grow the sales in this particular franchise. And if it's a highly grossing franchise, well, then it's got a great chance of success on both sides.
Yeah, and the franchisor, like you said, it's highly important that you get one that is scalable and you can, develop that out. But what makes a really good franchisee in your perspective?
Ambition, number one. Personality and ability to sell, number two, because ultimately it starts at the top. You're effectively the leader. The franchisee is the leader of the team. He's the coach of the team. He's got to have a lot of drive, a lot of ambition, I think a hunger to succeed. To me, I always felt that an ideal franchisee was somebody who barely had enough money maybe to afford the franchise, so was very hungry. Might have been starting off a mortgage, might have been starting off a family, and almost to an extent that failure wasn't an option for the franchisee. So he had that innate desire to succeed. I think probably the worst franchisee is somebody who's got a lot of money and they're just doing this as a bit of a hobby, and if they fail, it doesn't really matter to them. So a fear of failure among a franchisee, I think, would be very important as well. So if I was to put them in order, I think a drive to succeed, an ambition, an ability to lead people, really important, to lead a team, really important, and an ability to sell would be key components.
You mentioned this ambition, hunger, and it's funny because a lot of individuals see entrepreneurship as a thing where they can work on their own hours, and they might have see it through a bit of a rose tinted glass, and it's a little bit easy. What's your opinion on those people, and do you think there is some sort of work life balance when it comes to being an entrepreneur?
There can be, and again, I think interestingly, when we were interviewing prospective franchisees, we would always ask the question: have they got enough income to last at least 12 months? Because it will take that long before they get into profitability. We would also insist that we would meet the partner of the franchisee if they had a partner, so that they wouldn't be left under any misconception as to how difficult or challenging being a business owner can be. I think running your own business is fantastic, but it is a lot of time commitment. As an owner of a business, you're responsible for everything. Initially, you can't afford to have good people around you. You have to do it all yourself. So starting a business is can be very stressful, very challenging, and not always. Overnight successes are very rare, put it that way. It takes time to build a business. It takes probably a good 2 years before you can say, well, I think this business is now going to work. And again, I think franchising is a massive help in that area, because you do have the support, you've got the people around you, you've got your fellow franchisees, you've got, I think, answers to a lot of the problems that you might encounter or have already been encountered by other people, and they have ready-made answers for you. So it's lonely. It can be lonely, and franchising can be still lonely, but not nearly as lonely as going on your own. I think going out on your own can be much more challenging.
Yeah, and your story is really interesting, especially with Home Instead, because you didn't have much previous experience in that space. It kind of came to you, I believe, and then you took it on from there. Is it important for a franchisee, if they're coming into something, to have really good knowledge in there, or is it like you're just seeking that most ambitious person who will, drive revenue for you?
It's funny, it's probably better that they don't have experience, that they're coming in with very little knowledge of the industry. And if you look, say, at the print industry back in the 80s and 90s, it was very, it was years and years of being the same, the same going back maybe tens of years, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Set in his ways, and they had a way of doing things, and they were never going to change. And Snap came in and disrupted the market. We were able to do things much quicker. We gave better customer service. We employed salespeople. We had marketing. We had all of these things that the traditional older style printers didn't have. So to bring somebody in from that industry into Snap would have been very difficult to actually change that mindset. Whereas if you get somebody that maybe just had good marketing skills and good selling skills and bringing them into Snap, well, then I think they had a better chance of, I suppose, embracing the whole ethos and the processes that Snap had at the time. So the whole idea, I think, of franchising is that it's a business in a box, and there's ways of doing things, and everybody has to do things the same. So if you've got 20 franchise owners, they've got to be all pulling in the same direction, doing pretty well the same things. If some of them are outside of that and doing different things, well, then the franchise doesn't work. So part of the system has to be that everybody conforms into the system. So to answer the question, I would always have said that I'd be much more skeptical of somebody coming into me to buy a franchise who already had experience, because they tend to think that they know it all. Whereas really, we'd prefer to get them to start off from scratch and learn from scratch. And we can, we'd give a lot of training as well. So, we can get them up to speed pretty quickly. In Home Instead, which was a home care business looking after older people in their own homes, we had zero experience in it. But we went, Ed Murphy and my business partner and myself, we went to Omaha, Nebraska, and we spent 6 weeks there learning the business. And if you've ever been to Omaha, it's probably not a place you really want to spend 6 weeks there. But we did it. And we came back. And we set that up in we signed the franchise agreement on St. Patrick's Day 2005. We opened the first office on the 1st of June 2005. And within kind of 12 months, we were flying it. So, and we knew nothing about the business, absolutely nothing. And all of the franchisees that came into Home Instead knew nothing about the business. But we followed a very, very good system, and it worked.
That's amazing. Pretty interesting. You mentioned Ed, who was your partner.
Yes.
Is there anything you would say to someone who wants to venture into something themselves and they want to find their own partner to do it with? Is there any kind of traits or advice you'd give them, and how has it been with Ed yourself?
I would say that the best thing that ever happened to me in business was actually bringing Ed in initially as an employee and then as a partner.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember very clearly the day that he walked into my office in James Street, and Ed was probably 27, 28 years of age, and I was 32, 33 years of age, both still very young. And Ed sat down in front of me, and we spoke for about 3 hours, and I think we spoke about everything except business. We spoke about all the common interests that we had. Ed's a big GA follower, as I was, big sports follower, as I was, big into his fitness. But we just connected, and I pretty well gave him the job straight away as head of franchising. And we just worked unbelievably well together for the following 25 years. He became a partner within a couple of years. We did obviously Home Instead together as well. We also had another couple of franchises that weren't quite as successful. But we just, we had very complementary skills, which I think is always good to look for in a partner. And Ed and myself had those complementary skills, and we never. We had differences of opinion, but we never had a falling out. We never had what I would call a real argument. We found ways around our differences of opinion, and certainly from a business point of view, if you have somebody that you can share the load with, obviously it can be much better and more successful as well. So Ed was just a brilliant partner right through from 1992 up to when we sold Home Instead in 2019. So 25, 27 years.
Yeah. You mentioned the fact as well that you got into it quite young, in your mid to late 20s. Lots of people don't get into entrepreneurship until much later. What do you think are the advantages as well as the disadvantages of starting out a little bit earlier in your career?
Probably a little bit more innocent, I suppose, number one. You think it's going to be maybe easier than it is, but you have a great ability, I think, to overcome maybe hurdles. You have an ability, I think, to work, incredibly hard, which I did for a good number of years. Like when you're 27, 28 years of age, you think you can take on the world, maybe doesn't always succeed, but you think you can. So you have a great drive, you have a lot of energy, and you've got a little bit of an innocence maybe, which maybe allows you to take a little bit more risk than you might take when you're maybe in your 40s or 50s, and you've got a very kind of maybe a more expensive lifestyle at that stage with mortgages and kids and all of that. So I think I'd always encourage young people that if they really want to get into business, don't be afraid of it. There's so many advantages of being your own boss, even though you might have to work a lot harder than you would have to in another organization or an organization. But the benefits and the satisfaction you get out of running your own business is huge.
Yeah, and you keep bringing it back to that point about hard work, and that seems to be, across the board, what gives you success. You also now, I believe, mentor some young Irish athletes, rugby players, etc. We know they obviously bring a massive work rate as well. But do you think there's any other skills that they might bring to the table which helps them in business?
Yeah, so through the kind of EY Entrepreneur of the Year program, I manage a program between the players and the EY entrepreneurs. Myself and Ed were finalists actually of that program back in 2009. So I'm part of the alumni, and I probably mentor maybe, I don't know what number, but certainly a significant number of players and other non-players myself. Players bring, I think, a huge amount to the table in terms of their ability to work within a team environment, their ability to communicate, their ability to, I think, deal with both success and failure. I think as an athlete, it's not always about success. I think there's a fair bit of failure in there as well. So you learn a lot of resilience. You learn a lot of hard work. I said the whole kind of, I think, teamwork point of view and fitting into a team. If you're not a team player, you're not going to play for Ireland or you're not going to play for Leinster. So that works very well in a work environment as well. So they bring a huge amount to the table. I do think that they give up a lot too. You have players who may be a professional rugby player for 12, 14 years, but they're going to spend double that amount of time out in the workplace in a job that they haven't maybe spent a lot of time training for. So they have to go back a little bit in order to go forward, and it can be very stressful and challenging for them to do that. So one of the key things that I would say to the mentors working with the players would be to try and establish their interests, what they want to do, what they might do, and then try and put in some blocks in order to help them develop that interest, learn more about it, so that when they do retire at 34, 35, 36 years of age, they can actually hit the ground running when they retire. So there isn't they don't start thinking about it when they retire. They start thinking about it a long time before they retire, and they're working towards something other than playing rugby for that period of time.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and it makes a lot of sense as well. I was wondering, actually, because you've been in a lot of these high pressure environments with successful people, athletes and business people alike, is there anyone in particular, any individual that made a big impact on you? Is there anyone that stands out to you?
That again is a very good question, and I would say that there's a number of players that have made a brilliant transition from being a rugby player to being, a good business person or a good employee in a business, or has been successful in the corporate world. Some have gone down the media route and have done exceptionally well. Others have gone into the corporate world. Owen Redden would be one probably that I would single out. Maybe that Owen had studied really hard, had done his masters, and then went into Avalon Aircraft Leasing, and again has done extremely well, and recently moved to Singapore as head of the Asia and Middle East and Australia section of Avalon. So really done brilliantly, but he prepared for it, and that's the key. There's a number of other players as well that have had a really good, I think, transition. In terms of people that I worked with from a coaching perspective, like I worked with Declan Kidney for a couple of years. I worked with Joe Schmidt for 4 or 5 years, and I've obviously worked with Andy Farrell for a number of years as well, and they've all brought different strengths to the table. But I think in terms of being the most rounded person in terms of coaching, man management, motivation, empathy, that would have to be Andy Farrell. And I don't think it's any secret. Even on the recent Lions tour, I think a lot of the players that hadn't experienced Andy before were blown away by his ability to coach, and his ability to be, I suppose, strong in an awful lot of ways, but then, gentle mightn't be the right word, but just full of empathy, full of fun, and able to kind of release that pressure valve. It wasn't all about work, work, work. It was very much, let's have fun, let's have fun together, be yourself, be curious, be vulnerable, and don't be afraid to be those things. Build strong relationships with your teammates, with the management, and that's what makes a really good team. So Andy's just been extraordinary, I think, in how he's managed to, I think, get across all those different aspects of management. And I think Andy would have been a good manager no matter what career he followed.
And working with the likes of Andy and some of those you've mentioned, is there any particular lessons you've taken from them and applied into your own businesses?
Yes, there is. I think I think the feedback that players get is at a different level to what feedback that employees get. And I'd always say now, if I'm talking to a company or whatever, I would always say that giving your team that constant feedback about their performance, I think is really healthy for both sides and really important for everyone. Sometimes I think people are just let drift in a job, and they don't really know how they're doing. They don't get credit for the good work they do, and they don't get corrected for maybe some of the poor habits that they might fall into. Whereas in a rugby environment, you're constantly being challenged to improve in different areas, and no player, I don't think, is ever left in any doubt as to where he's excelling at and where he needs to improve. And that's certainly one thing that businesses could learn. I think another area is, I suppose, creating a sense of fun within the environment. I think is really important, that it's not all work. And sometimes, again, why do people leave companies? They're under motivated. They don't feel appreciated. It's not, money is important, but it's not. It's part of the package. And I think the other aspects are probably equally as important. It's how you hold on to a team. It's how you build a team. It's how you create success. Ultimately, is having that team that is happy in the workplace and happy in the environment. I used to think that the customer was always right, and that you do anything for the customer. But now I think that having the people you actually have around you, your team, they're the most important part of your business now. It's not the customer anymore, because if you've got your team and they're content and happy and motivated and energized, that's going to transfer to the customer, and the customer is going to love you. Whereas if your team are not motivated, or if they live in fear of you, or if the environment is too strict, that doesn't work. That transfers to the customer as well, which is not good for business.
Yeah, you're basically focusing on the source there as opposed to the end result. That's very interesting. If we look at your journey as being involved in franchises, being involved in the Irish Rugby Team, and as well mentoring athletes, is there any particular moment that stands out that you're most proud of?
Like, leaving family aside, I think from a business perspective, I'm probably most proud of having set up Snap back in 1984 when I was 27 years of age, and along with Ed, then growing it to being Ireland's largest print and design group. where it remains. Like, it's still a very, very successful franchise. So that was daunting, to be honest with you, because we did it on a shoestring. We had our first child in Australia, and we were due a second one only a month or two after we opened. So there was an awful lot going on in my life, I think, around that period of time, 1984. So to grow it from scratch in Ireland was very, very satisfying. I think from a rugby perspective, I mean, there were so many great days, and it's very difficult to compare business and being involved in sport, because business was very much my job. Sport was very much my interest and my passion. And business was, I suppose, a means to an end. Work hard, be successful, and then be able to enjoy life outside of it. Whereas sport was very much all in. And there were some incredible days. Hard to pick out one over the other, but you certainly say that beating the All Blacks for the first time in Chicago in 2016 was incredible. That was the week that everything came together in Chicago. Like, the Cubs won the World Series for the first time in 108 years. We got beautiful weather. There was 60-odd thousand Irish people in the stadium, Soldier Field. So that was unbelievable in terms of the occasion. And then I think winning a series in New Zealand in 2022, I think only the first European team to win a 3-match Test series there, and it was such a difficult thing to do. And I certainly, when I got involved back in 2012, I wouldn't have dreamt that I might have been part of a management team that was involved in winning a series down there. So that was pretty special. But it's about, I think it's also about the people that you've met along the way. I mean, if I look throughout my business career and my sporting career, let's call it, or my management of sport career, the number of fantastic people I've met over that period of time that I wouldn't have met otherwise is just huge. So. And what I'd remember probably most, you'd remember the special days, but you'd also remember very much the people that you worked with and became very close to and very friendly with, and you shared a lot of success and a lot of failure. Difference with the success and failure in business is very much there's only a few people really care about it effectively, So if you make a mess of something in business, you know about it, and your team will know about it, and maybe a customer will know. But in sport, your joys and sorrows or failures are going to be shared by thousands of people. So you look at the World Cup in France when we were narrowly beaten in the quarterfinal by New Zealand, and the utter devastation among the team was extraordinary to witness, but the devastation among hundreds of thousands of Irish people as well was pretty raw, I suppose would be the right word for it. Whereas failure in business is very much a personal thing, isn't it? It's not really shared with that many people. So it's a big difference, I think, between business and sport as well.
Yeah, I don't think anything can really compare in the world to the highs and lows of sports. And I think whether that's even from a childhood level, playing at your local team, or when you go up to these national levels, it's really something, especially that team spirit. Well, I'm curious, you've spent now over 4 decades, like you said, in business. Initially, you said it was that fear of failure that kept you kind of going at the start. What do you think it was besides that kept you motivated across those 4 decades?
Obviously, there was a financial aspect to it. So obviously, making money is one of the things that motivates you to be successful. But I think that fear of failure, and some people would say fear of failure is a good thing, and other people would say no, it's not a good thing. It stops you doing certain things, and it's not good for you. But to me, fear of failure is a very kind of important driver in right through my business career. Fear of losing, fear of failure, whatever way you want to put it. the other kind of, I've mentioned it before, the satisfaction of actually creating something from nothing and building it and growing it and seeing people become successful. Like we probably ended up at 22, 23 franchise owners in Home Instead. And when we sold, the buyer bought all of those franchisees back to make it into a more of a corporate entity. And pretty all of those franchise owners became multimillionaires out of Home Instead. So there's a lot of satisfaction, I think, in seeing people develop from initially just buying a franchise and over a period of time making it so successful that they they became financially secure for the rest of their lives out of it. So that was a big factor for me, I think, as well, in just enjoying the journey and enjoying looking at the journey of so many people that became successful and are still successful to this day. Like there's people that we brought into Snap as franchise owners back in the late 80s, early 90s, and they're still involved in Snap and they're still thriving and doing really well. So there's a certain pleasure in that as well, I think, in just seeing others succeed. And maybe it's part of my, I don't know, DNA or whatever, that whether it's through franchising or through the mentoring program with the players or through the team management, that I like kind of helping others achieve their ambitions and their goals and their dreams. Like all the mentoring I do now, it's all pro bono. It's I'd never even dream of charging somebody to mentor them. And I just like to kind of see them succeed, and maybe there's a little bit of what goes around comes around. So I help you, and then somebody else helps me. So you don't get it back directly, but you get it back indirectly. I think the more you give, the more you get back.
Absolutely. And how's your outlook on the next few years, or even at the moment? Will you be mostly doing a lot of mentoring, or you think you'll maybe start?
I'm kind of I sit on the National Professional Game Board for rugby. I still do a bit of mentoring with a number of the players and with a number of non-players. I'm a non-exec director of a company that supplies knees and hips into Santry, and there's a big sleep apnea business, so that keeps me going as well. I've three kids who are all in the hospitality business, all of their own businesses, so that kind of keeps me motivated as well to try and help them succeed in any way they can. So keen golfer, mad about sport, all sports. So watch sport kind of every day if I could. So I don't have any difficulty in filling in my days, put it that way. I'd like to think I have a lot of interests other than just sport or just business. I kind of try to keep myself, I suppose, motivated in terms of whether it's personal development, listen to podcasts, reading books, traveling, watching sport, playing sport, etc.
Well, thanks so much, Michael, for jumping on today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. If anybody's interested, maybe they want to get in touch with you, where should they go?
Oh, that's a very good question now. Well, you have my details, so how about they go to you and you can send them on?
Yeah. It's been an absolute pleasure, Michael. So
yeah. So nice to talk to you guys. I hope it'll be of some interest to your listeners.
Thank you very much.